Hello, my name is Jeff. This is Castle Tutelage, your home defense network. I Let's get to here. Jury nullification. This is something that came in a comment a few weeks ago, and I've basically left jury nullification alone a long time ago because it is a topic that is very important. And if you are a thinking person, you need to know exactly what jury independence or jury nullification actually is. Okay. In some of my videos, you may heard me say I would rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And that has a lot of ignorant sayings, ignorant thought processes into it. The main theme is that if you follow the law or if you do something stupid, I want the 12 juries to acquit me of doing something stupid. And it's really allowed that thought process to come to a veil of I don't care what the law says, because I'm going to hope that the jury will see through that how I was and acquit me. It's a very simple way of looking at things, in not a very practical way of going at your self-defense defense. Typically, what jury nullification is, and let's get into a definition. We're going to go through this first sentence here. A sanctioned doctrine, I don't know if it's actually sanctioned, but it is actually talked about. A sanctioned doctrine of trial proceedings where a member of the jury disregard either the evidence presented or the instructions of the judge in order to reach a verdict based on their own consciousness. And that is the key word, consciousness. It espouses the concept that jurors should be the judges of both law and fact. Now, when you're going through this, the judge is always going to say that the jury, your members, you're going to be the finder of fact. That is what a lot of judge instructions are going to be doing. But however, what the judge instructions will actually be doing is telling you that you have no right to judge the law, and the judge is going to tell you what the law is. I wholly disagree with that. I've said in the past that, and the last time that I was actually at jury duty, in California, I was called out for jury duty about every 3 years, and I can quickly get in there and get myself disqualified quickly. But the last one was a criminal trial. And if I remember right, a drunk in-law was being belligerent and attacked another family member. I can't exactly remember what it was. It was kind of a weak defense, blaming his alcoholism and why he shouldn't be going to jail. And, I was given out a questionnaire, basically, and it was a questionnaire from the judge. Do you accept the fact that you will follow the law? And I can't exactly remember. It's been too many years, but it was basically asking about peeping into the world of jury nullification. I smiled a little and I hemmed and hawed and I go possibly, and I was excused fairly quick after that. I guess what you really have to do is get into a little bit of history of what jury independence or jury nullification actually is. And I'm not really going to get into that. If you guys want to get into that, this is a great book, Jury Nullification, The Evolution of Doctrine by Conrad Clay. And it gets into the history of jury nullification, how it started in the process, and how it grew through the United States in the 1800s, and how it changed in the 1900s, where the judges and the prosecutors were getting kind of irritated of the thought and notion that jury nullification actually is, to the point where if you handed out jury nullification information at a courthouse on the property, people have been arrested for doing that by they're calling it tampering of the jury pool. And I've talked about psychopaths before. In the top 10 occupation were psychopaths, now they're calling narcissistic personalities sociopaths. In the top 10 are judges, prosecutors, and lawyers. Though that the people who are narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths, whatever you want to call them, they tend to gravitate toward those positions. So when you're giving people the information, a very powerful information that jury nullification, when you're on a jury, you are the finder of the fact, and you're also relegating to see if the law is appropriate in the situation. Because you can have judges, you can have prosecutors who go on a political rampage and try to get someone convicted on very weak grounds or on political connections. Well, if you haven't heard already, on October 28th, an Oregon jury found the Bundy group not guilty for their federal crimes on occupying a building. I'm not a very. I understand the sentiment of how the Bureau of Land Management and all its administrative police forces are overly aggressive towards Americans, and I don't agree with the Bundys in some aspects. And this is not the video to get to it. If you want to call this a jury nullification, you kind of can do it. Basically, what it's saying, the jury, the stuff that I have read, what the jury have said, is that the prosecution didn't come to the level of beyond a reasonable doubt for the charges that they offered. This could be a jury nullification issue also, where the jury is saying, hey, federal government, you are wielding too much power, and we are not going to put these people in jail. Now, the other side is going to say, well, now you're going to be emboldening other people to do the exact same thing. The people who have this mentality, Occupy Wall Street or occupy a federal building with handguns, whatever you want to call it, they're going to be doing it whether it's against the law or not. Now, let's get back into the history of it. The one positive thing that jury nullification has done is that during the slave days, where states were arresting black slaves that ran away, what was happening in certain states and certain communities, that they'd put these people on trial, and the jury says, no, I'm not going to convict them from being a runaway slave. The other aspects is that the illegal marijuana and drug use crowd has also come out and has really come out with jury nullification, saying that if people should nullify certain drug crimes because it is a victimless crime, whether you believe that drugs should be legal or not. I'll leave that up to you. It's just these people who, especially the people who want illegal drugs used, they take on a libertarian point of view, but they are not libertarians in any other view. That's what I see a lot. So what the juries are doing as far as the drug use in Alaska in the 1990s, I was in the Coast Guard up there in the 1990s, and marijuana use was approved up there, and the Coast Guard had to be kind of careful if we were within 3 miles of land. Well, marijuana use can be used on a fishing vessel. However, if it's past 3 miles, marijuana use was not permitted, and your boat your livelihood could have been seized. So that's what jury nullification does. Now let's put it into the context of self-defense. Now, the way I see it, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6, is a very innocent, not understanding what the system really does. Currently, the jury system tries to weed out the jury nullification, the jury independence people that are in there. I was asked those questions. Other people say that they weren't asked those questions, and it really depends on your state. New Hampshire is very favorable for that. However, over the periods of the next several generations, I think New Hampshire is going to be changing to the live free or die state to government is king state. That's just the way that state is trending over. So if you're honest with yourself and you are a jury independence person and you answer the question with the pre-trial questions and picking you out, if you answer them honestly, I think they're going to be weeding out a lot of independent jury kind of scenarios. Now, let's go ahead and complete this thought about jury nullification as far as a self-defense claim. Let's say that you're on a jury and you are been given a case where a person broke into a house and beat the living snot out of somebody. Now the defendant is up there saying, and that's all the information that you were given. Now the defendant is out there saying that I shouldn't be guilty, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And you don't know the backstory behind it, because the law, any good prosecutor is not going to allow why a certain act happened, only that the act happened. And the defense attorney is going to try to get the entire story in there, but he may not be given the entire, be able to give the entire story there, because certain information is going to be greatly biased for one side or another. Now let's finish the story. What I told you was somebody broke into a home and got them out of the house and beat the living snot out of them. What the entire story was, the guy that he beat to a pulp raped his 3-year-old daughter. All right, that changes the scope of things. Now, being a jury independence person, are you going to allow somebody to break into a home and beat the living snot out of a person? Let's go through innocence, imminence, proportionality, avoidance, and reasonableness. If you broke into the home, are you reasonable? No. Was he an immediate death or great bodily harm? No. Did he use proportional force? Well, in this case, I really didn't make the story to go around that. Avoidance. Is he in a standing ground state? It really doesn't matter in this case. And reasonableness. Is it reasonable for several hours after fact for someone to break into a home and drag him out of the house and beat him to a little pulp? What kind of society do you want to have running around with it being okay, even if someone raped your 3-year-old daughter, you going into a house? I mean, I think it's totally reasonable for you to feel that you would want to do that, but to justify that behavior and then say, well, I'm going to find 12 members of the jury to acquit me for that crime because they're going to know how I felt. Well, the jury may never even hear why you beat the dude up. It may be excluded in some fashion. So when you hear people say these things, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6, you know that they want something stupid to be justified. Yes, there are times when a law should be scrutinized. The jury is the finder of fact, and it also should scrutinize the law. The perfect example is, and I was meant to talk this earlier, the last time I was on a jury, a few weeks before that, Rosa Parks died. And I would like to say that, if Rosa Parks went to the jail for sitting in the wrong part of a bus solely because she was black, there is no way that I would convict her. That law would be totally unjust. That is the role of an independent jury. Some people believe that it's a jury's right. I'm not exactly sure if it's a jury's right, but it's definitely in their power to nullify the prosecution for a political attack. Some prosecutors know they won't win, but they'll still go to trial as the punishment. We need to eliminate these people, and that's the sole purpose of what jury nullification is. So when you're in a self-defense event, you are defending yourself against somebody else. You are not doing something stupid and trying to justify it later down the road. My name is Jeff. This is Castle Tuilage, your home defense network. I hope this helped.